I left the traction control on. I turned off the wheelie control and whoa, whoa, whoa. Hi, this is Andrzej. Let's talk about a certain topic. Sport or naked bike, because I'm at a test of BMW 4-cylinder bike, so I'll be riding different motorcycles. You'll get separate material on the S1000RR and the M1000RR. I don't know in what order, so just look for it. But from the start, I had this idea like, I'll take the M1000R and see if I can keep up with the S1000RR, or just see what my overall impressions will be. Then for one session, I switched to the S1000R, and it turned out that this is now my favorite motorcycle on the Cartagena track. That's what it's about. Here, there's really only one straight. And apart from that, you're just hitting corner after corner, turn after turn. And ultimately, I had the most fun on this machine. Not just because you can lean it from right to left more easily since you have a wider handlebar and so on. Because the fact is, the lean angles I was reaching in the corners were actually better. And it's not about playing with the lean angle. It's about the fact that in the middle of the corner, I had a higher speed on the S1000RR because of how you can position yourself on that machine. So when it comes to the amount of fun, this one totally won. That's because this machine isn't excessively powerful. We know that the S1000RR is a machine perfected for track riding. Racing at any amateur level and even beyond amateur is a topic for another video, because here you have things like top rack, the frame, and so on. But for a fast amateur like myself, this machine here at Cartagena is simply too powerful. And the same goes for the M1000R, which has the same engine here. And in the M1000R Naked, there's a 210 horsepower engine with shift cam. It's just all sorts of electronic wizardry, really. When it comes to the electronics that let you slide, you set the slide control so that the motorcycle just goes sideways the whole time. Whoa! Then you can slam on the brakes all the way because you have Cornering ABS Pro already in track mode. So even on slicks, you can go and brake as hard as you want in a lean, and the ABS won't let the front end give out. The electronics here let you ride extremely fast and transfer all that power to the asphalt. But it's exactly the speed that starts to become a problem, because it gets so fast that you actually start to get scared. Cartagena is a very demanding and a rather tricky track. And here, when you're going through those long right and left turns and you're supposed to open up the throttle all the way in 4th gear and just hold it, you start thinking, oh no, I don't want to do this, because it's just terrifying. It's really, really fun. But in the end, it's more terrifying than fun. And if you don't have slicks, because today we didn't have slicks on the S1000R and the M1000R, well, I was a bit nervous, because you really need to have an extreme amount of grip for that. I hopped on this one, and this machine has 170 horsepower. It doesn't have shift cam. Because of that, its characteristics, it's going to be weaker than those bikes when it comes to the lower rev range. But that doesn't mean it's a weak machine. It pulls really well already from the mid-range, very predictably. And we don't have that moment where the shift cam kicks in and whoa. It just doesn't happen. It goes smoothly and accelerates evenly. It's just so smooth, so even not excessively powerful. It's powerful. It's a very powerful 170 horsepower motorcycle that weighs 199 kilograms. The only possible downside I can think of here is that with the S1000R, you can't order the Race Pro mode, meaning you don't get that most advanced electronics package. But honestly, I don't know how fast you have to be for it to bother you that you don't have Race Pro and only have Dynamic Pro, because even the traction control and ABS in Dynamic Pro worked so well that I was easily able to overtake the M1000R, and I think I even overtook the M1000R around. That was someone who wasn't riding slowly, to be fair, so you can already do everything, and the bike feels lively because the suspension is a bit softer. That's how it works. Sometimes there are emotions involved. I had an amazing time playing around with this machine. Besides that, which is very important and will also be important, for example, in the city for regular riding in the mountains and so on. This machine has standard gear ratios, meaning they're shorter than in the M1000R and S1000R, because those motorcycles have such gear ratios that they're just so fast that it blows your mind. And on the Cartagena track, you end up riding in 2nd or 3rd gear, maybe shifting up to 5th on the straight, and that's it. And you can just shift as you like, click, 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 up and down. It's great. It just comes out of those corners brilliantly. Great feel. And the fact that it has brakes, you just told me it has, you know, those Brembos. And you look, and sure enough, some Brembo calipers that have been around for quite a few years. Regular Nissan brake master cylinder. And you know what? It just works. It doesn't fade. It's not overly modulated. It's simply good enough. Actually very good. And all these bikes, because they have, you know, all that wheelie control and so on. This one also has wheelie control, of course, but here, if you start messing with the settings, you get so focused on making it sporty and making sure everything works, just so. But here, I left the traction control on. I turned off the wheelie control, and wow, wow, wow. Then the motorcycle would lift up in all sorts of cool spots, and it just put a smile on my face, because here I set the wheelie control so it wouldn't lift. Because after all, it has to be about speed, it has to be about time. Ultimately, I don't know yet, because I haven't checked the lap times I did on the S1000R, but maybe I'll write it here or add it in later, because I think I wasn't much slower on the S1000R than on the S1000RR. All right, a quick update regarding the lap times, because I managed to check them. And now pay attention on the S1000RR with these S22 tires, which is honestly shocking that you can even buy this bike with those tires. I mean, they're great for the road, but on the track it was pretty slippery. But I did a 47.1, minute 47.1 at Cartagena. On the M1000R, which is somewhere over there, I did a minute 48.5, and on this one, 48.9. And now, pay attention. Lap times tell us nothing. And why was the S1000R so much faster than the M1000R, even though both are on RS11 tires? It's because these motorcycles are simply designed in such a way, with such a riding position, that it's easier for us to lean more in the middle of the corner, and simply in the middle of the corner, there's more speed. Well, it's a racing design, that's all there is to it. But that doesn't change the fact that as far as the most satisfaction today so far, it was the S1000R. And if you're gonna buy a motorcycle where the goal is road riding, touring, and track days, I still think that fun and satisfaction are more important, because here you're not comparing yourself to anyone. Here, you ride the way you ride. You don't have to compare yourself to other people on other sport bikes. So in my opinion, where satisfaction and enjoyment matter, this is my number one today. No, not even the M1000R, because it's too fast. Well, unless someone wants to do 300 kilometers per hour on the highway. But that's... Let's get back to the professional video, although I don't know if it's professional enough. So I'll leave the question to you. Isn't the S1000R actually the biggest competitor to the S1000RR? Because when you go to the dealership, you see a sport bike, so you go for the S1000RR, but then think about how you're actually going to use it. Are you going to ride it in the city? Or which tracks are you going to ride on? Because it might turn out that you'll be riding at maybe Swampshin, Białystok, or somewhere else that's closer to you. A smaller track, so it might suddenly turn out that on a smaller track, you'll definitely have a more enjoyable ride on this one. It might turn out that you want to go somewhere for a trip. So in this case, the wide handlebars aren't a bad idea. And you can put on a windshield. Well, then you already have a windshield. And maybe you like riding in this position, because there are people like that too. And you can definitely attach some panniers as well. So you tell me, isn't it the case that these ultra-refined naked bikes, because this is a motorcycle perfected to the max when it comes to an inline-4, aluminum frame, traditional values, and semi-active suspension. What a cool machine. By the way, I can't wait for its comparison test with a new Speed Triple 1200 RS, because that's going to be a really fierce showdown. So let me know, don't naked bikes actually make a lot more sense now than typical sport bikes? Bye.